Yo, listen up, here's the deal. Let me introduce a real big deal. His name's Hermdo.
Hey guys, what's going on? Hermdo back with you. And I thought we'd take a look at some interesting stuff on Twitter. We're talking about jobs, basically, or things that happened at your jobs that radicalized you. Let's get into a little bit here. Let's read a few of the comments, a few of the replies right under it. I was looking through this earlier. There's some interesting stuff on there. Wald Rada says, hard work just gets rewarded with more work. Yeah, I heard that before a few years ago. That's an old saying. People have been saying that forever, but yeah, your hard work won't be appreciated by your boss. I mean, it will be because you made the company more money, but it won't lead to anything. It'll be mostly more responsibility shoveled onto your plate after you prove you can be a good asset to your boss. Sometimes it means more money, sometimes it means a promotion, but more often than not, you get a lot more stress, thrown on your plate. And a lot of places, instead of hiring more people, they'll just lump more tasks onto the few staff they already have. Know your value, basically. Just know what you bring to the company, and if you get saddled with a lot of extra bullshit, if you prove to be a good employee, and it doesn't always mean more money, it just means you're kind of being exploited. You kind of learn how to recognize that and whatnot. Asked my boss for a promotion and a 20% raise after a few years of top review. She said no. I found a new job making almost double my salary, told them I quit, and she begged me to stay, saying they'd matched the salary. I left. My replacement was so bad, my boss got demoted. I've had that before. I worked at this one small company. This is about 10 years ago. But I worked at this one company. It was a engineering company, and I did design work for them with CAD software. Computer-aided drafting, if you don't know what that means. But I worked there for about a year, and my supervisor was such a dickhead. He was like this whack job Bible thumper guy, but that's besides the point. He would basically kind of demean me and kind of embarrass me in front of other workers if I wasn't doing a good enough job. He was really infantilizing, and I didn't really like the way he treated me. We got into a couple arguments here and there. I'm surprised he didn't fire me or get me in more serious trouble. But I remember working there, and he put a lot on my shoulders. I did a lot of work for these guys, and I learned a lot working there. But I remember I quit to take I got this job. I was making $14 an hour there, and then this other company offered me 20, and I was like, yeah, that's a 30% pay raise. I didn't even think about it. I'm just yeah, let's do it, and then, I left, and I heard from one of my other coworkers, a guy I was still on friendly terms with, and they told me that my replacement, he was having trouble. They had gone through a couple guys after I left, so it was just a big problem to replace me. And that was the value I had at the company. And I was only making I think it was $14 or $13.50 or something like that. This is back in 2014, but that kind of work, you don't get appreciated. I remember talking to the recruiter for this new job I took, and I told them what my responsibilities were, and they were like, you do all that and you only make $13.50? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, that's ridiculous. You got to know your worth. You got to know your worth and what you bring to the company. And if they're not compensating you well enough, get the hell out of there. All right, what else we got here? During COVID, I worked 12 to 14-hour days, was late to a meeting once by 1 minute and 15 seconds after coming back from surgery. Boss later that day called me into a meeting with HR, asked me to sign an EIP because he cannot have me late to any meetings. Note, this is after having 2 days off for surgery, and I'm not completely healed because my boss wouldn't clear more than 2 days post-surgery. I didn't sign the EIP. I told him to shove it. She said they'd possibly fire me. I said, going to be tough for you guys. Group went to 7 to 3, and I'm working most of our customers. I didn't get fired. I put my 2 days notice after I secured a job elsewhere 1 week later. Yeah, that's what you gotta do, man. Sometimes you just can't take shit. I mean, there's been times throughout my life where people were getting on my case for unfair reasons, just giving me bullshit for nothing, basically. And there's times I look back, I'm thinking, I could have walked out of that job. you save yourself, keep your pride intact, get the fuck out of there. But sometimes you just can't. They kind of got you over a barrel, People really got exploited during COVID. A lot of these essential workers got the short end of the stick. They had to work during a pandemic. They got exploited because, the crews are smaller usually, but there's a lot more work to do. There's a lot more shit to do. It's just that situation where, it's everything's so unstable. You got the stress of like this unstable environment. You don't know how deadly this pandemic is. You don't know what's going on. A lot of people had time off. I had time off during the pandemic, but the people that didn't, the people that couldn't take time off, they got screwed over. A lot of them got exploited. You gotta not stand for that shit, and I think more and more people aren't. Watching an older coworker retire, he gave notice and was fired the next day. No retirement party, no lunch, no handshake, just fuck you. No one ever spoke of him again. It changed me. That's wild. That's fucking wild. How is it even legal to fire someone just before they're about to retire? In my country, you cannot normally sack someone 2 years prior to the retirement unless because of misconduct. It's legal. American workers don't have that many rights unless you have a union, and unions are rare these days. Yeah, the amount of unions, the percentage of people in unions has totally collapsed in the last couple decades. It's not good. It's not good, and I know there's critiques of unions and stuff like that, but workers got to have more protection these days. That's absolutely unbelievable, man. But these are the things that happen to you throughout your job, really kind of puts things in perspective for you. Let's read a few more of these. The scream of a teenager who just found out her mother had died from complications of pregnancy. Ooh. In my first real IT job, I worked very hard to be the highest output worker on the team in an attempt to gain traction and move up. When promotions came around, they skipped over me for a new hire because I was too valuable in my role, and we can't afford to lose you here. Oh, man. Oh, dude. It's a miracle more people don't melt down at work. It's a miracle you don't hear more stories about people bringing weapons into work, not to paint that picture for you, but Jesus Christ. All the bullshit they put you through, it's not reciprocal. With work, it's not reciprocal. You bust your ass, and they never cut you any slack. Never cut you any slack. You've tried to prove your value to the company. You're still in that mindset, there wasn't this kind of attitude, like this modern attitude toward work back when I was a kid. But, back when I was entering the workforce, it's just you say yes, sir, you say no, sir. Eye contact, firm handshake, work all this extra hours. That was just kind of expected. And that's kind of gone away with the younger generations. I think millennials were the last with that kind of, for lack of a better word, boomer mindset when it came to work. My boss told me one time that I made him $70,000 in a month, and I was super excited about it. I worked as a mechanic here for 3 years without a single raise, and I barely made that in 2 years. People wonder why. Oh, his boss was excited about it. I misread that. I'm sorry. People wonder why the younger generation hates capitalism. All the value you produce, just think about that shit, even in some of these jobs, like a mechanic, it's one of those things. That's an extremely important job. You think those guys get paid a little bit better. You think, helping people keep their cars on the road, that's huge. I'm the world's worst mechanic. I am not good with cars at all. So I've relied on mechanics throughout my life, and I think those guys are pillars of the community as far as I'm concerned, man, But there's a lot of these jobs that there's so many types of jobs in this country that should be compensated better, honestly. How real the movie Office Space was. Yeah, Mike Judge really had his finger on the pulse of American culture in the 90s and in the 2000s when he released Idiocracy. Sold a vape to a guy who refused to let me show him how the thing worked, constantly saying he's in a hurry, so I told it to him. Later, comes back furious that it doesn't work, didn't turn it on. I was fired a week or two after, with this given as one of the reasons. Oh yeah, shitty customers. That's the thing, dealing with people. I've worked customer service before. It's very rarely have I ever had a customer service job, but dealing with other people, dealing with random people who have no obligation to be nice to you, who constantly expect a certain level of service from you or a certain accommodation from you that you're not always able to provide. Your bosses are always going to side with the customer. Always. That's the thing. It's unfair, I guess, in some ways. It's stupid people don't understand things, and they make it everybody's problem, and they never really think for a second. They never reconsider their position for a second and think, hey, maybe I'm being an asshole. That's the way it is. You just got to put up with it. Put up with stupid people. A state surveyor told me a patient had a knife and I needed to check out the situation. I rushed down there expecting to de-escalate a man having a crisis with a weapon. And it ended up being a 95-year-old, 4'11" lady with a butter knife on her lunch tray. Oh, God. Oh, boy. Let's check out some of the quotes. I know that this got quoted a ton. Repost. Oh, wait, quotes. I kept complaining about how overworked I was. When I finally left, they hired 7 people to do my work. Incredible. Incredible. They will always take the cheap route. Your company will always take the cheap route. If it's easier to slough off work on you, they'll do it. It doesn't matter. I mean, whatever saves them the most money, they don't care about how much stress they cause you. That's the thing. Okay, I gotta translate this one. Looks like it's in French. I was the manager in a hotel and a customer made racist comments about one of the receptionists. I gave him a straight face instead of remaining professional. Oh. Yeah, some people are dicks. You got all sorts of morons out there doing stupid shit. Why be mean to, I just don't get it. Why you got to be throwing that shit out at people? I don't know. Another French post. First student job, 3rd day of work, I suffered sexual assault from a client. And when the boss found out about it, he offered me an ice cream to forget the little slip up that happened earlier in the daytime. I worked at a place. This kind of similar things have happened in places I've worked before. I worked at a place before where they hired this guy. This company hired a lot of ex-cons. And a lot of those guys were good dudes who legitimately wanted to get their lives together, of course. But there was a couple guys who were total scumbags. They had this one guy. It happened on first shift. I worked second shift. And this guy was harassing women on first shift. And it got real bad. He was touching them and stuff. And it got to this point that they started complaining. Girls were freaking out about it. The company took them all out. They gave them an hour-long lunch and took them to Subway. And we're just kind of look, we're in the clear now, right? We're in the clear now. And a bunch of them quit. It was just a big fucking mess for this company. But, you see places handle that kind of shit. The guy got fired, obviously. But it just, with these companies, the way things are right now, it depends on your industry, but you get to work with all sorts of fascinating people. You get to work with some real bastards. Had to handle a situation where a male nurse was accused of rape. After 2 days, found out she was falsely accused by a married nurse who he kept turning down. She wasn't fired despite admitting to making it up. Her husband threatened to kill him. He stopped working with us. Oh, it happens to the fellas too. There's some nutty ladies out there. You hear about this kind of stuff happening. Not to sound like a men's rights advocate. That's the worst possible thing you can be. But yeah, guys can be sexually harassed too. It's a big mess. And guys really don't get taken seriously. I mean, just you tell somebody that a woman is harassing you and you're just what's the matter? Don't you just want to have sex with her? What's wrong? And it's just not every guy is down with that kind of stuff, man. Especially with a married woman. I don't mess with married people. I don't mess with people in relationships. If you want to cheat on your partner, go ahead, but it's not going to be with me. Hey, you knock yourself out there. But guys aren't really taken seriously in this kind of situation. I'm not going to say this is an anti-male society or whatever. I know that'll piss people off, but in a lot of ways, hey, guys get screwed over in the situation too. It's a big mess. And, sometimes women can be real pieces of work. Sorry, ladies, it's true. A resident committed suicide and our hospital administration hid her suicide letter from her parents for weeks before they were forced to finally give it and revealed that it was because of harassment in her department. No action was taken after it anyway. Oh, yeah. You hear stories about this kind of stuff. You hear all sorts of these terrible stories. It's really bad. It's really bad. Just, talk about, men getting harassed, women getting harassed, people getting harassed. It's awful. It's awful. At work, you expect, certain kind of professionalism. Let me make the screen big now. But at work, you expect it depending on your field, but most people that go into work, they expect safety at the very least. They don't expect to get harassed. They expect to at least be respected. And I've been disrespected before as a guy, and sometimes people don't take that stuff seriously. But I know how it happens to women. It happens to women a lot. Women get harassed at work. It's a serious problem. Guys can be real creeps. I'm not trying to say otherwise. And something has to change with like workplace culture, the way this stuff is handled. Because people don't understand. It's just like when you hear someone who's disenfranchised with work, you just assume they're being pussies, or they're some kind of communist nut job, or they're just lazy or whatever. All these old ways of thinking from like older generations regarding attitudes towards work. It's like, back in their day, this stuff probably happened, and it was just like kind of a boys club, just like, oh, whatever. That's just the fellas doing what they do. And it's like nowadays, no, people aren't standing for it. People are just like, because this stuff is a big deal. It affects your mental health. It affects your physical health. People are taking their mental health more seriously, and it's good. It's good that this conversation is happening. And work is a massive, massive stressor, because it's bad enough to get like exploited by a shitty boss, but to get like harassed too, that's fucked, man. You don't need me to tell you, but I'm gonna leave it there. If you have any stories about workplace radicalization, let me know. Oh, I do want to share one story. I did say earlier in the video I'd share a story, but I remember I worked at this one company with my boss was a real good guy. We got along really well, and we just we'd have smoke breaks, talk about whatever during the day. And he did the work of like 3 people. Like every day he was busting his ass. He oversaw like 3 different departments, was like overseeing like 30 people. It was crazy how much work the guy did. And he asked for a raise, and then they made up because he was making barely more than we were. Just barely more. And he did more money. He had kids at home. He had debt he had to take care of. He asked for a raise. He kind of got on the boss's case about it because he kept bugging him about it. And they made up some arbitrary bullshit reason and fired him. And that just kind of stuck with me. I just like, you let yourself be exploited and you think, maybe they'll appreciate you in some way. But no, they just lump more work on you. And if you ask for more money, they boot you out the door. It's fucked. But now I'm going to leave it there. But if you have any stories about your workplace, leave them in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, share. Let me know what's going on in your life. Do you guys hate your jobs? I don't really hate my job, but it pisses me off sometimes, sure. But we'll have that discussion about that later. But yeah. Let me play my awesome music. All right. Hope you guys like that. I will talk to you guys later.